Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating idea from game theory that, well, it's going to change how you look at strategic decisions. It's all about the power of the things that don't actually happen.
So let's start with this provocative quote from Professor Bruce Bueno de Mesquita. I mean, it seems totally counterintuitive, right? Why would we focus on stuff that never even happened? But trust me, by the end of this explainer, you are going to see exactly why the most important part of a big decision is often the path that's never taken.
Okay, to really get a handle on this, let's look at a classic game theory puzzle. We're talking about a high-stakes strategic decision between the United States and Iraq.
All right, so here's the setup. You're looking at what's called a game tree. The U.S. gets to move first. They can either remain or withdraw. Then it's Iraq's turn to respond, and they can either fight or not fight. Now, see those numbers in parentheses? Those are the payoffs. The first number is for the U.S., the second is for Iraq. And it's simple. The higher the number, the happier they are with the outcome.
Okay, before we even try to solve this thing, we've got to get one key term down: strategy profile. And look, this is really important. It's not just about a single move. Think of it as a complete action plan for every single thing the other player might do. It's your if-then statement for the entire game.
So for a simple little game like this, you'd be surprised there are actually 8 possible strategy profiles. Now that might sound like a lot, and you might be wondering why. Well, it's because a full strategy has to cover every what-if. Iraq needs a plan for if the U.S. remains, and a totally separate plan for if the U.S. withdraws. It's all those contingencies that create all these different combos.
So, with all these options flying around, how in the world do we figure out the one single rational thing to do? Well, the key is this really powerful tool called backward induction. Let's break down how it works.
The logic here it's so simple, but it's absolutely brilliant. To find the best first move, you actually have to go all the way to the end of the game. Figure out what the last move will be, and only then do you work your way back to the start.
All right, let's do it. It's time to apply this to our puzzle and see exactly where the rational path takes us. Okay, first step, we go to the end. So imagine the U.S. has already chosen to remain. Now it's Iraq's move. What's the rational thing for them to do? Well, they just compare their payoffs. They get a 4 if they not fight, and only a 3 if they fight. 4 is better than 3. So of course they're going to choose not fight. Okay, now let's look at that other what-if scenario. What if the U.S. had chosen to withdraw? Iraq does the same calculation. In this case, not fight gets them a 3, but fight gets them a 4. So once again, the rational choice is crystal clear. They're going to choose to fight.
And now, because we've figured out the end of the game, we can zip right back to the beginning. The U.S., assuming it's rational, can see the future, right? They can predict exactly what Iraq is going to do in both cases. So the big question for them is, which path gets them the better payoff?
So the U.S. is looking at 2 clear outcomes. It can remain and get a payoff of 4, or it can withdraw and get a payoff of 2. Yeah, the choice becomes incredibly simple, doesn't it?
And this single rational path we've just found, well, in game theory, it has a pretty fancy name: the Subgame Perfect Nash Equilibrium, or SPNE for short. Basically, it's the one and only outcome that makes sense when you assume everyone is thinking ahead and being logical.
So the solution to our puzzle, the SPNE, is this. The U.S. will choose remain, and Iraq's complete strategy is not fight if the U.S. remains, but fight if the U.S. withdraws. Now, the final outcome that we would actually see play out is the U.S. remaining, Iraq not fighting, and both sides getting that nice 4-4 payoff.
And this brings us right back to that mystery we started with. The logic clearly shows the U.S. will always choose to remain. So, why on earth did we just spend all that time thinking about the withdrawal scenario? The one that is never ever going to happen.
This right here is the big reveal. It's all about the power of what if.
Here's the mind-bending part. The U.S. only chooses to remain because it knows what would happen if it didn't. It's already calculated that if it were to withdraw, Iraq would fight, and the U.S. would be stuck with that really bad payoff of 2. So the path that is never taken is literally the reason why the other path is chosen.
And this just perfectly illustrates that quote we started with, doesn't it? The outcome of the path that didn't happen is precisely what determined what did happen. It's the threat of that worse unrealized outcome, what we call the counterfactual, that forces both players onto the better realized path.
The unseen is literally holding up the scene.
So now you have this really cool tool, right? Backward induction. And if you want to test yourself, see if you can apply the exact same logic to another classic problem, this arms control game. We've put the answer, the SPNE, on the screen for you. So feel free to pause and see if you can work your way back to it yourself.
So the next time you see a big strategic decision playing out, whether it's in the news, in business, or hey, even in your own life, ask yourself this question. What is the path that isn't being taken? And how might the unseen consequences of that path be shaping everything that you can actually see?